Surprising lessons that I've learned from complete filmmaking failures that I hope you guys can learn from my mistakes. In today's video, I'm going to be covering some of the big mistakes I've made through my filmmaking years, but not only giving the failures, but what I actually learned and took from those failures to where I was able to apply them to just be an overall better filmmaker. And also, guys, if you wait until the final failure, you're going to hear the worst filmmaking failure I have ever made in my life. And I pray that you guys never have to end up in that same situation that I did. So as further ado, let's jump right into failure number one. The first failure that I had in my filmmaking career was when I went to a shoot, got everything ready. It was an interview shoot, and I realized that I did not charge any of my batteries, not for my A7S III, not for my R5. I had like 2% battery on a majority of the batteries that I had taken with me. So what I ended up having to do was essentially like tell the client, look, I'm really sorry, I made a big mistake. I need these batteries to charge. And to make things worse, I didn't even bring a charger with me. So I had to call up a friend, get him to bring the charger to my shoot. I was plugging in like one of the Sony batteries on the side while I was trying to film with the little battery that I did have on the batteries that I currently had. And then I was like plugging in my B camera via USB-C to try to get some juice. Guys, long story short, it was a complete, utter, awful mess. And it was just embarrassing. Not only embarrassing to myself, but I just felt really bad for the client because, you know, these people pay you guys and pay me a lot of money. So when you show up like that, unprepared, it just looks really bad and they don't want to hire you again. And sure enough, I didn't get hired again from that client. You know, he was really cool about it in the moment, but I could tell that he was very, very upset. What did I learn about this failure that I made in this lesson? Well, guys, you need to do a really good job in preparation. And you'll see that as a common theme with a majority of the mistakes that I've made and the failures that I made throughout this video is that preparing for your shoot when it comes to gear, when it comes to shots, when it comes to locations, when it comes to, you know, bringing the proper lighting, that is going to really help you avoid a lot of the mistakes that I did make in the past. And it is definitely something that I have implemented into my filmmaking journey and career. Moving into failure number two is when I shot S-Log3 for the first time. I was shooting a commercial for an e-com product, and I was just testing out S-Log3. I had just learned about shooting in log for the first time earlier in my career when I was first getting started. And I just was completely overexposing and underexposing every single shot. I didn't know how to properly expose or white balance, you know, using S-Log3, and the footage just came out absolutely trash. So I remember having to get a bunch of, you know, at the time I wasn't editing on DaVinci, so I had to download like external softwares to try to remove all the grain that I had in the underexposed shots. And there's just no way of correcting the exposed shots because prior to that, I was just shooting in auto. Like this is, you know, this is right in my early stages when I just got my Sony A7S III and I was just first learning how to shoot in this log format. What is the rule of thumb and what did I learn from that? Well, guys, when you're trying out something new within the filmmaking world, whether it's a new color profile, whether you're shooting in a new format, whether you're even shooting on a new camera, you guys need to test this out on something that's not a paid client. You don't make the same mistake I did. I remember I was able to get away with it, but again, that client did not hire me back because the shoot just didn't look that good, and it didn't look nearly as good as my prior shoots in the past. So the lesson to be learned about, you know, this specific mistake and failure that I made was if you're going to be trying out something new, just make sure to test it out on a mock shoot or test it at home or go out and do some sort of shoot with some friends for fun to make sure you have a proper grasp on this new way of shooting before you try testing out new things with clients out on the field. Okay, moving into my failure number three, and this is when I trusted friends of mine, trusted people that were in the filmmaking world to handle a shoot for me without properly really knowing how good they were, how they would be performing professionally. So this is right at the early stages of my career. We had landed this gig with one of my clients that I've used a couple times before. He wanted to book me out for like this weekend shoot. It was like this, mastermind. I couldn't make it. Like, I could not make it. I couldn't handle it. So, I called a friend at a time, a couple friends at a time, and I sent them to go handle the shoot for me. They had never handled a shoot for me before. I just knew that they were somewhat good with cameras, and they just completely bombed the shoot. Like, the audio was messed up. The quality of the content looked so bad. They didn't show up on time. They didn't bring the proper equipment. Like, they just completely failed miserably on the shoot. And because I was the one who booked the client and I was the one who connected them, and I did this whole thing through my business and my name, I was the one who got the blame for it. Right? So again, that client never hired me out again. They actually didn't even want to pay me the second half of what they owed me, because it was just such an awful job. And yeah, it just pretty much sucked. But again, guys, it was a lesson to be learned that when you do get in these situations, it's okay to outsource. It's okay to get other people to handle the shoots for you. But it's almost better to not do that until you properly have trained or know 100% that the person that you're working with is going to do a good job. Because again, at the end of the day, it's your name that's going to be on the table. It's your name that's going to be out on the field during this production. And the last thing you want is it to come back on you because you didn't properly do your enough due diligence on the people that you've hired. Moving into failure number 4, and that's going to be neglecting the storyboard that the client sent me. So I had a client. Luckily, this failure wasn't the end of the world. I still work with the client today, but essentially what happened was I got so used to shooting for this specific client that I already thought in my mind that I knew what they wanted me to shoot, how they wanted me to shoot it, what type of shots they wanted, to the point where I said, yo, I don't even need to look at the storyboard. Like, I'm good. I know what I need to shoot on this specific gig. So of course I went out, shot it. I thought the video was great. Like, I think I did a great job on the video. But of course, once I sent it to the client, they sent me back with an email that was like, yo, you're missing this shot. You're missing this shot. You didn't follow the storyboard. The timeline doesn't make any sense. And when I opened up the storyboard to recheck, I realized that it was significantly different than a majority of the other storyboards that they had sent me. So because I messed up and failed by not reading the proper instructions and thinking that I already knew it and had too much of an ego when shooting this shoot, I just completely, disregarded what I was supposed to do. And I ultimately had to go reshoot this product. And it was just a waste of time and a pain in the ass because I could have done this the first time. So yeah, the lesson from this is, guys, like, always make sure to read the storyboards. Always make sure that you prepare and you get things approved by the client, and make sure that you're doing exactly what they want and what they need. Because if you don't, you're either going to end up in a spot where you have an unhappy customer client, or you end up in a spot where you have to go and reshoot and waste a bunch of time, which nobody wants to go and do any sort of reshoots. It's just a pain in the ass. And moving into the last and final failure, which in my opinion is the worst failure of them all. And it has happened not to me, but so many other filmmakers. And not only does it just suck, but it's also sad because you lose a lot of memories, which, yeah, that's the failure. One of my hard drives crashed that didn't just have a bunch of projects from clients, but it had a bunch of projects from myself that I had collected over years, and I never backed it up. Essentially just completely crashed. I sent it into a repair company, but they told me it was going to take like a month to get it fixed, and they were going to charge me like $2-3 grand. So I just didn't end up doing it at the time because I didn't have the money. I was just first getting started. But yeah, that was definitely the biggest failure of them all. Absolutely sucks. Heartbreaking. And I don't want to see that happen to anyone. And unfortunately, it has happened to a lot of my friends as well who are in the filmmaking world. So the lesson from this is, guys, make sure to back up your footage. I know it's more expensive to back up footage to 2 hard drives, but luckily, guys, memory is getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, and you don't need to back up all your footage to another SSD. you can just back up the footage to, HD drive that you can store just in case something goes wrong with your hard drive. Because guys, believe me, you don't want to end up in that situation. So that is all of the biggest failures I've ever had in the video production world. And hopefully you guys can learn from my mistakes and not make the same failure mistakes that I once did in my video production career. If you guys enjoyed the video, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe. And as always, peace out.